Welcome, everyone, to this emergency press conference talking about the new Department of Energy 45ZCF-GREET model, talking about the new USDA technical guidelines for climate smart agriculture crops used as biofuel feedstocks, talking about the new USDA FDCIC or USDA feedstock calculator for carbon intensities. We have a lot to talk about here today. I've got a lot of notes that I want to go through, and we are going to hammer through it because I want to get to your questions, try to answer as much of that as possible. Starting from the beginning, my name is Mitchell Hora. I'm a seventh generation farmer from Washington County, Iowa, down in Southeast Iowa. And I'm the founder and CEO at Continuum Ag. We are a software company that is helping farmers to manage their data, improve their soil health. And recently, we've been, over the last 2.5 years, we've been very focused on understanding the 45Z opportunity and helping farmers to quantify their carbon intensity, verify the practices occurred, and help them to tap into these emerging markets. We've got some tremendous clarity, but we also have a lot of unknowns yet. So let's start there. And what happened yesterday? So yesterday, January 15th, there was a couple different pieces of information that came out of Washington, D.C. What happened yesterday is that the Department of Energy released the 45Z CF-GREET model. CF stands for clean fuels. So in accordance to the clean fuel production tax credit, 45Z. So that's it was a little confusing at the beginning, but CF, it was noted, stands for clean fuels. The 45Z CF is named in the IRS language as the anticipated tool to be utilized for quantifying the 45Z tax credit. The IRS released their guidance, or they didn't release guidance, they released an intent to issue guidance, and they put the draft guidance in there. In that draft IRS guidance, it says that we're going to utilize the 45Z CF calculator. It says that in that calculator, there's still going to be some need to improve it. And namely, they were talking about the feedstock and the climate smart feedstock. There was some alluding last Friday that in this initial 45Z CF, there would not necessarily have a feedstock calculator, but that one of those would need to come. But it gave clarity that they're going to utilize this 45Z CF-GREET model. We got that yesterday. As was kind of hinted at on Friday, in this new 45Z GREET model, the crops and the unique carbon footprint of those crops not included. This 45Z GREET model basically was it gave calculations for all these different crops and all these different biofuel pathways. So producers can start quantifying what their CI score is today, but really the only ways that you can lower your CI score is by utilizing more, by changing your energy usage or by getting carbon capture, whether that be direct capture and taking that carbon capture straight down or with the pipeline and that kind of thing. It did not give indication about when the feedstock calculator is going to be added or to what extent. We are digging into that to figure out is the Department of Energy going to develop their own 45Z CF feedstock calculator or what's going to happen there. So IRS started the public comment period. They said we're going to utilize this 45Z CF-GREET model. That got released. The 45Z program is able to move forward. It started on January 1. It is still the law of the land, but the farmer component was not necessarily exactly specified in what we have seen so far. However, yesterday the USDA released their technical guidelines, basically as their recommendation of how they think the biofuel feedstock should be scored. And we learned a tremendous amount from it. The key thing that is going to have to be determined going forward and finalized by the Trump administration is IRS sets the rules. They're saying that they're going to utilize this Department of Energy calculator. So those guys ultimately get to set the rules about how they are going to calculate the carbon intensity of the feedstock. And we don't know how much are they going to copy and paste from USDA versus how much are they going to just kind of do this on their own. So we cannot speculate on what they are going to do, but we can learn a tremendous amount from the words on the page in this USDA feedstock calculator. So the USDA feedstock calculator, it went live yesterday. We called it MRV protocol for measuring, reporting, and verification. They called it quantification, reporting, and verification, basically the same thing. But the USDA laid out some very good, pretty darn clear guidance about their recommendation so that if USDA was the ones that were writing the rules for 45Z and how to integrate the farmers, USDA said, here's what we would do. So let me go through what they said. USDA introduced their own calculator. The number one difference well, there's multiple differences, but the core difference in the calculator is the USDA calculator is built on the Decent model, and the old GREET model was built on the Century model. Decent stand for Daily Century model. The Century model is definitely older, definitely more outdated, and that's why USDA was wanting to go do their own. USDA has utilized this Decent model in the past. They utilized it when they built the Comet tool. Some of you are familiar with that. This new USDA feedstock calculator, it is field by field. It works for every county in the country that we have tested so far. We're not through every single county. We'll get through that in the coming days. But they expanded it and fixed some of those SOC issues in the old feedstock calculator, but they simplified the practices. In this new feedstock calculator, it's not about a lot of the numerical specifics of your practices. It's more so check the box. What I mean by that is it looks at, are you conventional till, reduced till, or no till? Check the box on one of those three. And this is field by field. What's your tillage? Are you cover crop? Yes or no? Are you using a nitrification inhibitor? Before in the 40B rules, we had all these enhanced efficiency fertilizer options. No more. It's nitrification inhibitors only, and it lays out a detailed list of them, or it references a list of these approved inhibitors. I've not been able to read through it yet, but it does give some clarifications. If you're in the nitrification inhibitor space, there is some information there. It also talks about the split applications of nitrogen and split in-season nitrogen, in particular, nitrogen or fertilizer going on at planting time, and then the majority of the fertilizer going on in season. There's also a credit for no fall nitrogen. So, tillage, cover crop, nitrification inhibitor, split in season nitrogen, and then no fall nitrogen. Those are the core things that check the box and move the needle. However, these are just guidelines right now. We need to be ready if 45Z goes that route. However, we are going to continue to collect all of the farmers management data. In this new USDA feedstock calculator, it doesn't directly tie in. However, what's crazy is if you are selecting any of these practices, you also do have to keep record of all your fertilizer, all of your planting, all of you and cover crop planting, all those details, and all of your harvest records. So, even though you don't get specific carbon intensity impact in this new CI calculator for phosphorus management, potassium management, you still have to report all of it, which is kind of wild. And one of the things that we are going to be pushing for in the public comment is farmers have to collect all this stuff anyway. You simplified the model, you recommend simplifying the model in order to attempt to lower the record keeping burden. But the reality is you aren't lowering the record keeping burden because we have to collect all these additional records, even though we don't get credit for them in this new feedstock calculator. We should utilize a feedstock calculator similar to the old GREET feedstock calculator, and farmers can then utilize lots of different ways to improve their score. Um, I've got a gazillion different notes and stuff here, but some of the other key, really, really key things and my takeaways from it. The audits and stuff that a farmer's going to have to go through, now very clear. The farmer can go through their own audit, like what we've been doing with CI certification, or the audit can occur at the first point of aggregation. And audits have to occur at every point of aggregation in the supply chain because, unfortunately, the USDA recommends that this be done on a mass balance approach rather than a book and claim. So, what that means is that every point that they call it the low carbon crop, every point that the low carbon crop gets sold, it has to be mass balanced at each of those points of aggregation. On the farm, you have to do a weighted average of your entity. Okay. And again, this is just the recommendations from USDA. We're going to need to provide some comment, and we'll be very public about what we are going to comment. The USDA did start a 60-day public comment period yesterday. So we're going to need to make our voices heard in that process. On the farm right now, it lays out that you must document your practices for every field per crop. So for all of your corn fields, you have to document your farming practices, whether they were climate smart or they call it conventional. So if you check none of the boxes, meaning your no cover crop, your conventional tillage, you're not using nitrification inhibitors, you are a conventional farm, and therefore that field does not, that's a conventional field, it does not get a CI reduction, but you would still need to note that field if you are taking a carbon reduction on some of your other fields. So say you've got 3 fields that are fully conventional, you have 7 fields that have some of these climate smart practices, you'll end up having to do a weighted average at the entity level for all those fields together if you operate them all under one farming entity or one taxpayer ID essentially. Oh gosh, I was just thinking another thing with that. Oh, what the USDA missed on is manure. The things that came out yesterday are not great for animal agriculture. There might be some opportunities, but what was laid out, the initial words on the page, manure does not get any credit credit for utilizing manure, even lowering your fertilizer rate by the use of biologicals or the lower fertilizer from the use of the split applications or from the inhibitors and stuff. You only get credit for checking the box and doing the practice. You do not get credit for the amount of fertilizer utilized. You still have to report it, but it doesn't plug in to this updated feedstock calculator. It just doesn't make sense. It allows for some bad actors. It creates a loophole. But anyway, manure not included. You have to check the box on these other set of practices. So it's and there's no bundles. So you do not have to do all of them. You can do just one of the practices, but it's just a little bit expanded from what we had in 40B. But again, we recommend that it be closer to the GREET feedstock calculator. Not as much, this too limited of a number of practices. So at the farmer level, we have to document your farming practices field by field, and then you have to create what's called a biofuel feedstock report. I believe this is the opportunity for Continuum to help our farmers. A lot of you who are already in CI certification, basically the end report that we'll be giving you. Now, the new name for it is the Biofuel Feedstock Report. In that Biofuel Feedstock Report, that's where you have to denote what was your CI score field by field. You have to do the attestation that you did the practices, you followed the protocol, you are the operator. It lays out very good um, information about the farmer attestation and what needs to go in that report that we will be able to create for the farmer. That report may or may not have to be audited at the farmer side. I think there's going to be some opportunity for farmers who do wish to go through an independent audit like ours. You either have to do it ahead of time, like through our CI certification program, or you sell your low carbon corn and you sell the biofuel feedstock report, you sell that to an aggregator, then they have to do the audit or the third party verification. And then your farm may be chosen for an audit. Um, it lays out that if your farm has already been audited and gets chosen for an audit at the aggregator, they'll utilize that old audit as long as it meets the requirements and you're good to go. So that's really encouraging that all the work that we've done to help farmers go through this process, that we have to make a couple adjustments, of course, of our MRV protocol. We have to make a couple adjustments of how we are going about this, but we are darn close to what was specified by the USDA. Now, we are going to continue to be cautious here. We're going to take all of the words on the page here and determine how to incorporate them into our business endeavors. But until we get final indication from the off takers, whether that be biofuel and 45Z purposes or anybody else could adopt some of these protocols. It's designed for biofuels, but it's laid out that hey, you could voluntarily take some of this protocol and go do your own thing. It's not designed for carbon credits, but other companies or whatever they could basically build their own protocols and their own programs and take some of the concepts laid out here, which it does do a decent job. Um, Let's see. So, a couple other things that's really important on the farm, especially, we have to keep record for 5 years. You have to be able to have good records of all your farming practices. If you are taking any kind of claim on your nutrient management, you have to have a nutrient management plan. And like there was some stuff that's pretty aggressive that I don't know if it's all going to be 100% realistic. I think going forward it could be realistic, but I don't know if they're going to allow for farmers to be kind of grandfathered in. There are some things that could be a little clunky at the beginning. Um, let's see. For all of the on-farm data management, it gave us very good indication about the records that you need to collect. So at Continuum Ag, our farmers that have been in our CI certification program, we have been helping you to document the evidence, right? We got some good clarification here about the items of evidence that the USDA recommends, and it's very much in alignment with what we've already been collecting. Receipts, shape files, machine data. They do talk about utilizing remote sensing, like satellite imagery. They do emphasize utilizing photos that are geotagged and timestamped. So take photos on your phone of every single thing out there, like at planting your cash crop into a no-till or a cover crop system. Take a picture in every field when you're planting cover crop. Basically, just anytime you're out there doing a pass across the field, I'd be taking a picture, especially when you can see the soil or see the residue or the cover crop on the surface. So, because yeah, some of that they want to see a lot of those records. Definitely a lot of data management, but lays out again a good indication about how Continuum Ag can be of service to farmers who are able to participate. So in I've got a gazillion different notes here. I didn't want to go through every single one. I want to get to the questions and have conversation with you all. So put those in the chat, or I mean, if you want, maybe we can take a couple questions if you want to raise your hand. I can pull you in. So I want to get to those questions. Let me conclude this piece with what are my recommendations as of right now. As of right now, a farmer, you need to be getting your CI score. Um, and we can do that for you for free at TopSoil.ag. Now, we have not integrated this brand new feedstock calculator from the USDA in yet. We are working on that. We will need to add that into our software. I do not yet know exactly when we can expect that. I hope relatively soon, because this new calculator wasn't super complicated. So I hope we can get it integrated in a fairly timely manner. But I think what we're going to have to do for now is that farmers, you need to get your baseline CI score. We can do that for free. And our initial take was we should score using the Department of Energy feedstock calculator and with the USDA feedstock calculator because we don't know what route it's going to go. And I hope it does not cause unneeded confusion. But I just I don't want to get rid of the old feedstock calculator from the Department of Energy because there's a chance that they just utilize a Department of Energy feedstock calculator for 45Z. So I don't want to get rid of what we've been doing and only go the USDA route. But I think we have to integrate this USDA calculation so that you understand where you sit. So that's step number one. Get yourself scored. And in Topsoil, farmer, you own your data. You do the farm profile. It's for free. And we will run these different calculators for you. And whenever a new one is integrated, we'll run that score for you. If you have already scored your bushels in Topsoil, like we've done on 350 million bushels, we will integrate the new model and run your score in this new model. I think we've got the information needed already to be able to do it fairly seamlessly, but we will let you know if there is anything additionally that's required. I think if you are a farmer who has already sold crop to a biofuel producer, whether that be direct or through your co-op, I think we need to be looking at developing these biofuel feedstock reports. We will do some digging in on that, determine what we are going to do to be able to assist with that. I think we're well positioned, and basically it's what we are already doing. So that would be the next step: is do your baseline CI score with the new model, determine kind of where you're at, and if your practices would qualify. Next step would be to generate the biofuel feedstock report. That takes documentation field by field and the farmer attestation. From there, there's going to be an opportunity to get audited, whether that be an independent audit or an audit provided by your aggregator, the biofuel producer, or the elevator. I think those things will be able to move forward, especially at the elevator side. At the biofuel producer, this did not give those biofuel producers all of the necessary guidance that they needed to start heavily investing in 45Z. It gave them some strong evidence towards investing in carbon capture and pipelines, but not necessarily for heavily investing in the on-farm, feedstock. Now, it does say, or it does, of course, give indication that on-farm feedstock is going to be included. I think there is a direct need for biofuel producers and farmers to start working together. We've got to start developing these biofuel feedstock reports. We've got to be ready to go through these audits. We've got to have the supply built up. We need to get that going now. Some folks have already been doing that, which is amazing. Obviously, we've been going direct to farmer to help them to get it done and working through our network. But that scoring and data management, that is what we can continue to move forward on in anticipation of the updated IRS guidance. And we're going to have to work very aggressively with the Trump administration to get this done correctly. But we've got some good ideas here of on the farm what we can be doing to help our biofuel producers. And I think it can be done in a manner that is not costly, does not have to massively change our systems, but it is going to take some work because you got on the farm, you got to document everything and you're going to have to go through an audit. So a lot of this stuff that Continuum has been harping that I've been pushing for 2 years, We definitely we're talking the right talk, and it's coming to fruition. Again, we're going to recommend some changes, but overall, what we had been building was right. So farmers, get your baseline score. If you are already selling to biofuel producers and stuff, I'd be looking at getting your biofuel feedstock report. We'll follow up on that and provide some more information. If you are selling, or if you are an elevator, if you are a biofuel producer, we need to be looking at, should we start going through the audit or at least be developing an audit protocol? We have that we can assist with. We've already done the first one, and we just got to modify, and we'll be ready to go for some of this. But it's about being in position here and being uh, communicating with folks at the IRS who ultimately will be the decision makers. Yeah, thank you. Justin's coming in. On the farmer side, there's definitely still some opportunity here. What was amazing about this GREET model that came out is by utilizing these practices, you can get significant improvement on your CI score. And by a significant improvement on your CI score, I mean, we were running some stuff where you can move the needle by 15, 19, 25 CI points. It might not be as incredible as the old feedstock calculator, which when you utilize manure plus no-till and cover crops, you got really big reductions. The manure piece is not there anymore. So the CI reductions aren't, 30, 40 points on corn, but there's definitely still opportunity to get 15, 20, 25 points of CI reduction. And keep in mind that for every point, the biofuel producer can still earn 2 cents per point per gallon, which translates to, between 5.5 cents to 6 cents per point per bushel. And that's got to be shared. And again, right now, the biofuel producers did not get 100% clarity to start doing a lot of payment in that. But I think there's going to be biofuel producers who will implement pilot projects around this, who will start issuing some small preliminary payments. But there is key guidance here coming from USDA that farmers are a part of the solution, and implementing these practices moves the CI needle enough to make it worth it. For example, I mean, there's some stuff that your value of the practices could be worth a value of $1 per bushel or more to the biofuel producer. Again, this is a biofuel production tax credit, not a farmer tax credit. And because it's mass balance, it's going to have to be shared and blended and aggregated at each point of the supply chain, which is going to eat into the percentages that each stakeholder gets of the pie, because now there's definitely more stakeholders who need a slice of the pie, but the pie is big enough, can be big enough to really incentivize some change here. And farmers are still in great position to be part of the solution. And again, step one is going to be understand what your CI score is. We can do that for free. Move forward with creating these biofuel feedstock reports. I don't believe that will be free. And definitely going through audits is for sure not free. Actually, it's fairly expensive. But it's going to be required and going to be worth it. So farmers, a good day overall. We're excited to keep moving forward and help you out. Okay, let me get to some stuff here. Okay, I've got all kinds of texts and messages and all kinds of stuff. Okay, so Jaden, can the grain go to a local co-op if the end user is still an ethanol facility and that co-op be part of the transfer of CI? Yes. So that's part of the mass balancing. So farmer, if you sell your low carbon grain to an elevator, the elevator has to report how much low carbon grain they purchased and what was the CI score of that low carbon grain. Then they have to mass balance the low carbon grain that they purchased. Then they can sell low carbon grain that can then be mass balanced or weighted averaged at the ethanol plant. So yes, elevators You need to be contacting your farmers, have them get their CI score, which again, we can be a partner to do that. We do it for free. And based on some of this guidance to come, we're going to need to get those farmers audited who are producing the low carbon crops. They're going to have to go through an audit, and you have to audit at each point of the supply chain annually. Again, we were pushing for book and claim to not have to go through all that rigmarole and all that additional expense, but USDA said we're gonna use mass balance. All right, let me get to some of these. Jackie, good to have you on. Oh wait, sorry. Yeah, Jackie, didn't see anything on manure. Do you anticipate that be included? Others should get added. Yeah, so no manure in there right now. It's definitely a major hit on the animal ag industry. Again, this yesterday was not great for animal ag. Mass balancing is not good for animal ag because now we're talking about the grain has to end up going to the ethanol plant. It's going to be trucks passing each other on the road and just not good for carbon emissions and additional added cost and driving up inflation on a regional basis. So animal ag is definitely going to have to get, they're going to have to be providing their comment in this public comment period. And because their manure is not included in the calculations, that could have been, uh, that could have been something that the USDA said, well, we're going to mass balance it, but you can still utilize manure, and there might have still been opportunity for livestock folks, but right now, not great. Philip, apart from pushing for the adoption of book and claim, what other main points will you insist on, especially at the advisory council? Yeah, so I've got the advisory council piece that I've been appointed to as well. It's a little different than for this, but I'm obviously going to continue to tie them together. I think some of the things that we're going to be pushing for, definitely the book and claim. It makes a lot more sense, could be a lot more scalable, a lot less headache for everybody involved, and a lot better financial opportunity, including for the elevators. I think there's still tremendous opportunity for them to participate in this program and make some money if it is a book and claim. We're going to be pushing for there's some issues in the reporting requirements for the farmers that we got to fix some of that. There are some stipulations that you have to maintain the practices and stuff. I think there is some restrictions there that we need to get cleaned up in our feedback, accounting for the manure, and especially as part of the advisory council, right? It's about where do you draw the line in the sand about the product that I use on my farm, what of its supply chain, what should be included in my footprint. Um, there's currently inconsistencies between how we account for the footprint of fertilizer versus manure versus seed versus equipment and all that. So we need to create some consistency on where's the line in the sand going to be. And in the advisory council, I mean, it's going to be, we got to have some consistency here amongst what models are we going to be using, and how do we work to improve the models by connecting farmers and those scientists that are continually improving the model. So a couple just hot takes on that, but um, also, I think another piece that we need to be pushing for is at the farmer level. Currently, it says you have to weighted average all of your fields together. I don't think that's realistic either. You should be able to either weighted average all your fields together or keep your individual fields separate. I know in our operation, we have some of our fields that we often sell the grain direct from the field to town. And therefore, that grain should have that field CI score and practices associated rather than get it blended with all these other fields. Other farmers as well, you have certain fields that you just put in tile and you want to work it that year. And maybe that field, that's what you sell that grain to non-biofuel and rather than weighted average and blended in with all of your other fields. So there's some nuances like that, but we'll be public and sharing what our recommendations are going to be. Is there a set of rules for what seeding rates and crops are needed to be used for cover crops? They did not go into the specifics of the seeding rates, but you do have to note what rate, what cover crop, when you planted it, when you terminated it. You have to keep track of all that. And they want photos of that cover crop growth to make sure that you got a greenhouse gas benefit. You can use single species cover crops or multi-species. That's fine. You can use winter kill cover crops. That still checks the box. Historically, The IRS has said you got to utilize the guidelines set up by your local NRCS as far as rates and planting dates and stuff. Um, I think there was some indication of that in this USDA rule as well, but they did not get it was not included in the actual GREET model and in the calculator and that kind of thing. But you'll still have to document all of it. You'll have to document you have to document what practices or what rate, what species, where do you get it from, the seed tags, all that kind of stuff got to be tied in. But checking the box that you use to cover crop is what currently moves the needle in this new feedstock calculator. Philip, don't you think the final DOE CI calculator will use the GREET CI calculator as a base, keeping the energy inputs, keeping the fertilizer amounts, keeping manure, and etc., and including the new USDA calculator? Would you push for that? Yeah, that's essential. Where we currently think that we want to push for. Okay, again, this is all brand new, less than 24 hours. Okay, so we got to get some of our thoughts and our recommendations more concise and be thinking about our collaborators and other folks, not just ourselves here, right? But our initial take is Department of Energy and IRS use the actual GREET feedstock calculator. It's more comprehensive. The CI score impact is pretty similar amongst the models anyway, but we need to be factoring in yield and production. We need to be factoring in energy usage and fertilizer usage specifically, and manure. I mean, all these things need to be factored in, and we probably need to be looking at other practices as we go. What we like about the USDA stuff is it gave the MRV protocol about how to do the record keeping, how to do the audits, how to do the chain of custody stuff. That is good. But the actual feedstock calculator, I think it was just kind of overly simplified and it could open up a door for some bad actors. For example, over applying fertilizer. If you're, check the box and use a cover crop, but then over apply fertilizer and not end up with a great yield, well, your impact on the environment could be really bad. So, but it's a kind of a combo is what we'll be pushing for. All right, sorry, there's a gazillion questions and I am being too long-winded. How many CI points per gallon of fuel can the CSA practices receive? I think I answered that before. Some practices are very minimal. Some of them you can get fairly substantial, 20 points or more. We will get that plumbed in, and you need to understand what your farm is as soon as possible. We, of course, will be letting everybody know as soon as we have the ability to get you those scores. If you're talking with some of our guys, we got to get them trained in, and they might be able to run it manually for some of our farmers until we get it automated. But I can't promise that for right now. It's all brand new. We gotta go through some internal training here first. Jackie, curious how your on-farm stats were changed before this guide to now. Do you see this as having the ability to really drive premiums to the farm level? It'll move the needle. I have not had the time to even run my own farm in this. I'll get that done today, and maybe I'll do some social media posts and stuff about it. But I have not even had enough minutes to take a breath or to uh, to slow down. I was reading the documents till late last night. Was up early this morning reading through them some more. Spoke at a thing yesterday. Yeah, haven't been able to do it yet, but I do from the initial plan with it. We do think that the CI improvement and the associated potential financial impact would be enough to start adopting some of these practices. But again, since it's not the USDA feedstock calculator is not comprehensive enough, but their recommendation for the CI impact of certain practices, I think there is plenty opportunity for farmers, and we need to continue to be focused on being ready for this and help the Trump administration as they work to finalize the rules. We need to get that as fast as possible, obviously. Paul, can you discuss that yields do not change the CI score up or down? Yes. So Paul and I discussed yesterday, and I've talked with a couple of you already. A key, just a glaring issue, I think, in the USDA recommendation is that the feedstock carbon intensity score is supposed to be the feedstock per bushel. However, they don't necessarily directly tie in what was your yield. So therefore, you're not necessarily getting what was your feedstock CI score per bushel. It's just based on per field and checking the box. So there's some just core root issues there. Meaning, for example, right now, again, I personally have not played with this enough, but it's my understanding that um, I could be doing all of the practices, but with low fertilizer input and good yield, a good nutrient use efficiency ratio. And I could have a neighbor who's doing all this same check the box practices, but is high fertilizer input and did not get a great yield. And currently we would have the same CI score. This is a core flaw and is counter to the intent of this legislation. So that's going to have to be addressed. That the yield needs to be important. Um, in the USDA component, they didn't do that. Again, hopefully that can be addressed as the Department of Energy ultimately rolls out what the calculation is going to be. Marty, does it mean the farmers who use chemically based SRN, trizone urea, will not receive credit? No. Currently, it says nitrification inhibitors only. I would need some more information about that specific product, and we need to look on the list. It says the list is defined by AAPFCO. I don't recall what that acronym stands for, but there's a list of nitrification inhibitors published by AAPFCO. Currently, you have to be on that list to get credit. Cover crops cannot be grazed or hayed. That's correct. So your cover crop, you can crimp it, you can roll it, you can spray it, it can winter kill, but you can't graze it or hay it. It also says, so we're going to need some pushback on that, obviously. Again, this was bad for animal ag across the board. There was a lot of things that were not great for animal ag, and that need to be addressed, that needs to be fixed. They are a part of the solution. But yeah, they don't want you to graze it or hay it. It also has specifics in there that you cannot fertilize your cover crop. It's like obviously it's just goofy. There needed to be there's a major need for more farmer and CCA feedback. Paul, if you strip till, does that drop you from no till to reduce till? That piece was a little bit unclear to me. So in the no till, so they in 40B it was no till only, right? And then no till included strip till. In this guidance, no till includes that you can disturb the row where you're going to plant the crop, whether that be with row cleaners or whatever. But to be no-till, you have to keep your, I think it's your STIR. Yeah, your stir number has to be below a 20. To be reduced till, your STIR, your stir number, has to be below an 80. So they moved a little bit from it just being uh, tell us what your management practice was, and that checks the box, to you've got to take your tillage practice and everything, fertilizer, other pass across the field. And that's got to be plugged into the stir calculator in order to determine is it no till, reduced till, or remain conventional. Gary, are you required to sign up for a number of years or is it year by year? This is one of the things that we're going to have to be addressing as well. There is no sign up. However, if it says that specifically for no-till, if you are committing to no-till as one of your check the box items, if you select no-till, it says that you must do no-till on that field for at least 4 out of 5 years. So, and you're attesting that you will do that. I don't know what the repercussions would be. And again, this is USDA making the recommendation that you should do this for 4 out of 5 years. The IRS and Department of Energy has not ruled on that. But you sign up and you create the biofuel feedstock report. We call it a CI certificate. You do that field by field, year by year. However, for no-till specifically, it said you have to do it for 4 out of 5 years. Gonna need some more clarity on that, and I'm gonna need to think through a little bit more on um, how that's really gonna work. Are you going to have guidance for talking points for the comment period? Yes. We will be very public about our recommendations, our thoughts. Each of you as individuals or as businesses, you should go about doing it your own thing. But we will be, saying, hey, here's some of the ideas that we are looking at, or, and obviously we'll be looking to our advisors and folks in our networks and stuff to make sure that we have a cohesive message here. But there are some things that definitely need to be fixed. We got some good starting point, but there's some things that need to be fixed, and we're going to need to do that in a timely manner. Are they CI reductions for specific practices similar to the previous FDCIC? Yeah. So I haven't been able to play with all of this yet, okay, but this is one of the things that we are going to do, and we can report back on. That being from the old feedstock calculator versus the new one, if I check the same box, do I get the same CI reduction? I do not know the exact answer to that today. Again, I've not had enough time to play with it. I'll know about that very soon and report on that. But it looks like they're pretty close. They're not maybe as amazing for every county. I think they leveled out a couple of them, but they're better. And there used to be old counties where cover crop didn't move the needle at all because it did not have an SOC calculation. Now it looks like that got solved. So there's some good and bad, but overall we can work with it and be pretty good. But I'll do some following up on that, or especially some of my team that's listening in. I know we're already looking at that, but definitely note that down that we need to report back on those changes. Okay, we're getting up on time. I'm going to continue to answer questions. I don't think I have a hard stop here, so I'll keep hanging out. For everybody that is on, this is recorded. If you do need to drop, and if I haven't gotten to your question yet, if there's more questions that come in, I do a CI chit chat every Tuesday morning at 7:45 Central. So add your questions in there, and we can address them at that time. Yes, Justin. Yes, yeah. So just saying, encouraging to participate in the public comment period. I mean, that's our job, right? As taxpayers, that's what they're asking us to do is give comment. I think we're going to need to give some of those very specific examples as well. I think livestock folks are going to need to give very specific examples of the likely or the potential financial impact that this is going to have in a bad way. Like if this increases the cost of grain and impacts local basis, uh, livestock folks are going to need to be able to run some of those numbers and understand what that impact is going to be and tie that in. So yes, be very much ready for the public comment. We'll circle back there. What are your thoughts on cover crop requirements, specifically that USDA says they can't be mechanically harvested? I currently harvest mine used for seed for next year. But I did the same thing. We've been relay cropping for 6 years. I think taking it all the way to harvest, we're getting maximum, carbon reduction. But by definition, when you harvest that winter crop, it's no longer a cover crop. By definition, it's now a new cash crop. So I understand that by definition we're changing it there, but they need to account for those I think they call it an intermediate crop or something like that, which is the category where in the future winter oilseed crops and such are also going to kind of fit into that intermediate crop thing. So today, don't get credit because technically is not a cover crop. It's technically a new cash crop, but it is going to need to be addressed in the public comment and going forward. Is nutrient budget report required to take credit for nutrient management climate smart ag practices the same as a nutrient management plan? It's not super clear. It did give some ideas about the nutrient budget report or whatever that you have to have soil samples within 2 years of making that report. You have to have a financial budget in there. You have to have yield predictions in there. You have to note how you are accounting for other nitrogen credits, like if you use a legume cover crop, or that's where I assume the manure would tie in. It wasn't clear about should you tie in a credit from organic matter or from a crop rotation. Those things were not super clear, but it lays out if you're going to check the box within those nutrient management items, you're going to have a written nutrient management plan. not familiar with the Nutri-budget, specifically lists universities, extension, FCIC, crop insurance approved people as the only ones that can write those reports. I didn't read it exactly as that. I read it as you can either develop your nutrient management report based on soil samples, or you can develop your nutrient management report from a expert at a land grant university or extension person or FCIC approved folks. So I interpreted it as one or the other, but it is a good point that that nutrient management piece, I don't know how feasible that's going to be. It sounds like a potential for a lot of headache. And I haven't played around with the model enough to see is the juice going to be worth the squeeze in terms of the gains you can have. We know that these models are going to continue to be updated. So at this point, we got to keep very good records of everything we do. And we might have to take that a step further to develop plans ahead of time. Have you heard anything? Have you heard if the ethanol world is happy with the 45ZCF-GREET model? I haven't received word on specifically within the 45ZCF. I'm looking forward to having a lot more of those conversations. I think if you have carbon capture, you're very happy. Um, but if your core solution was going to be buying low carbon feedstock, that was not started. It was not clear on exactly how that's going to work. We got what USDA recommends, and that's what we're going to have to keep moving forward on. And farmers, we got to be moving in that route. Elevators, biofuel producers, we got to keep moving in that route and provide feedback to the Trump administration to write the rules. But overall, I mean, it's at least we got something from this administration. I think we definitely still can commend them for that, especially USDA coming in to assist with this process. They put together pretty thorough report in quite a short amount of time. And even the White House review, they submitted on December 6th and they got it done on January 15th, 45 days, whatever, or less. Usually those reviews take at least 90 days and they got it done pretty quick. Um, I was on a meeting with Vilsack yesterday, and he was saying, if they had more time, they would have maybe done some things different or expanded upon what they put out. But of course, uh, the timer ran out of time. So, um, but overall, it's good that we got some clarity and things to move forward on. What's the difference at all between unrelated party certification and qualified certifier? Qualified certifier, my understanding was that you've got to be accredited through some of these. It's not the ISO standard accreditation. There's a different group, whatever, that you have to be accredited by. I'm not familiar with that. We currently work with Eco Engineers, who is our verifier. I'm going to have some conversations to make sure that we check all those boxes. We have some other auditors that we work with as well, but I think Continuum's role in helping biofuel producers and helping elevators is we've got an MRV protocol and a software built out that you can utilize, and you can utilize or license basically our MRV protocol and go through leveraging our auditors, who then issue the audit reports and stuff. So, but yeah, it's got to be unrelated parties and stuff, and we have to talk with these verifiers, make sure that they check all the boxes and are accredited. Any lead time before this is required to be applied is by 2024 crop not qualified. So this 2024 crop is definitely still the target number one for this program. 45Z started on January 1. 45Z is in effect right now. We just have not received the final IRS guidance as to exactly how to go about it. They've already given pretty decent indication about the reporting that an ethanol plant's going to have to do and the CPAs have to do. They've already given good indication about how you could sell the tax credits that you create in the secondary market. They've now given good, rules about, other components of the credit. They just have not given great rules of here's the interim rule and this is starting and you can operate under it. And they've definitely not given good clarity about how to tie in the farmers. USDA just gave their recommendation. So on your crop, again, I recommend get your CI score for your 2024 crop. I think the best thing, if you are selling to a biofuel producer direct or via an elevator who's going to mass balance and then sell your low carbon grain, if you are in that biofuel supply chain, I believe the next best step is going to be at least to do your biofuel feedstock report. It's essentially the same thing as what we do with our CI certification and getting all the farm data done on a field by field level. You're going to have this. We will circle back with more information about how we are going to be able to assist with this. But it's very close to what we have already been doing in our CI certification program. Um, it's also going to require getting your neighbors and other folks in the same supply chain on board as well, because we're going to need volume of low carbon crop ready to go. We need to be communicating with the biofuel producers and collaborating together to make sure that we are in this together. As a farmer, you cannot you cannot get the 45Z credit as a farmer. You cannot monetize this right now at all, unless outside of biofuels wants to develop similar programs, or your biofuel producer does start working towards at least some piloting programs or some letters of intent or something like that to bring farmers into their supply chain and create some certainty there. So let's talk about that more for farmers who have already, if you've already sold grain to the ethanol plant, you really got to get on the ball here, get your biofuel feedstock report put together, and and get your neighbors put together that have also sold to that ethanol plant. Again, the ethanol plant did not get IRS rules about how they can compensate farmers or how they can account for that, but we know the type of data that we can start collecting now, and we can get ahead of this and be ready to capitalize and help the Trump administration to get it done. Different forms of N give different scores. No, that's another core flaw of this new USDA feedstock calculator. It does not include what type of fertilizer you used or how much or the specifics. You have to collect all that data. You still have to do all the reporting. You still got to collect all that info. You still have to have evidence for the specifics of what you did, but it does not give you a, a CI impact. Again, a core flaw of this new USDA calculator, and where, again, probably a combo or utilizing the Department of Energy calculator, it would account for that. We're just looking at 2025 data for CI scoring, or do we need to collect historical field data as well? No, historical. So it's 2024 and 2025. So it's two separate years. If your 2024 crop is in the biofuel supply chain, your 2024 crop should be at least, again, get your free CI score. Probably going to need to quickly here get your biofuel feedstock report and at least have that done. And you will need to go through an audit. And for 2025, start documenting all of your practices now. We have not yet rolled out our 2025 offers now with gatherings, with some of this newfound information. We have better direction about how to support the farmers in the 2025 program. But no, if your grain is in a biofuel supply chain 2020 from your 2024 crop, uh, definitely could be opportunity here. Are only climate smart practices allowed? And if you have records on climate smart practices in 2023, 2024, those kind of going forward. Yeah, I think I just account for some of that. Hopefully I got your question answered. Does the corn physically have to be sold to the ethanol plant? Can they just buy my carbon on paper even if I delivered it to end user? No. So it's got to be tracked through that supply chain in a mass balance approach. So we want book and claim. This is the piece that, Eli, you're going to want to be communicating in the public comment period. But no, today you either have to sell your low carbon grain and deliver your biofuel feedstock report directly to an ethanol plant, who then has to do a weighted average of all of those certificates, or you have your data and your certificates that you sell to an elevator who then does a mass balance tracking how many of these low carbon bushels they purchased and how many they sold, and they have to end up delivering it to an ethanol plant. Though it's not book and claim like a carbon credit. You have to have the supply chain connectivity. Not exactly what we wanted, but it's what we have to be prepared for at this point. Our actual yields account in CI score calculations, no. It's just county average at this point, is how I was reading it. Your actual yields not included. Again, a core flaw of this USDA model. I don't know why they went that route. Maybe there's some because they talk about the overall production and stuff, but it's my understanding that you have to say how much production you had, but that doesn't impact the CI score. So it's an issue we got to work on. Does every farmer have to use a weighted average for farm level CI, or is that optional? Now, my reading of it is it's farm level CI, which is a weighted average of each of your fields CI per entity. So how I read it is on my own farm, I have my own farming entity. My dad has his own farming entity. We will each have a CI score for corn and for soybeans, each of us. The grain gets put in the same bins, but because that initial point of aggregation, there was not a sale of the grain. I do not sell my dad my crop. When I blend it in with his at the bins, I still own it. Therefore, I could still sell based on my crops CI score. But at this point, it would not be field by field where I could say this came from the home, the home field. It's got a CI score of, whatever it's going to be, 10. And then the West Farm has a CI score of 0. I cannot sell grain with a 10 and a 0 if it's the same entity. They would be weighted averaged together. Um, we can deal with it. It doesn't really make 100% sense, but we can deal with it. Um, and at Continuum, we'll be getting you field by field CI scores and work through this. Bob, good to have you on. As always, I sell to a biofuel plant who will be on a carbon capture pipeline that indicated that they will not participate in 45Z. Will this make it easier for them to buy my corn to participate? Uh, will this make it easier for them? So, I mean, they're going to need to do 45Z. I believe with the clarification yesterday, now they do have better option to do 45Z rather than 45Q. Because if they get some more clear, number one, it's my understanding that the core math of 45Z is better than 45Q. So I think it's just going to be better to elect 45Z. They can only do Z or Q in a given year. And last week, the IRS rules gave very good clarity about how to go about choosing Z or Q. They give some good indication of that. But I think, Bob, the key is going to be communicating with your local ethanol plant to say, hey, the farmer piece is not included today, but we've got some draft rule from the USDA. Maybe that'll be included. We're going to be working with them to try to get that going. I don't know when they have to elect which uh, credit they want to participate in, Z or Q. I don't know the timing of that. I assume it's at the end of the year when you submit your actual taxes, but it might be earlier because they do have to fill out, they have to be on the registry or whatever. They've got to fill out an application to be eligible. So they might have to do some stuff ahead of time. I'm not a CPA, of course, but I think we if they can stack the carbon capture CI benefit and the crop CI benefit, that's going to be the best opportunity for everybody here. Okay, sorry we got a lot of stuff here yet, but we'll keep going for a little while. Thanks for a lot of you that are still on. Michael, you are still able to take advantage of 45Z incentives if you are receiving funding through NRCS or USDA or putting on cover crops but not selling your carbon credit in a program. Yes. So again, we don't have the IRS piece of this, but in the USDA stuff, they did not say anything that you can't stack cost share and carbon credit or a CI program, but they did explicitly say you can only sell the carbon once. So it's CI or carbon credit. You cannot do both. And it even said, I wrote down this because it was really important info. Oh, where was it? Something about you can't take account for Oh yeah, right here. No double dipping of the CI information, the attributes, or the greenhouse gas benefits. So it's not only specifically like no other carbon credit program, but any of those like the attribute, the outcome of your greenhouse gas impact. So I'm thinking about things like how is that going to tie in for LCFS markets and those kind of things. Are you going to be able to do both? We don't know, but definitely USDA at least recommending no double dipping CI and carbon credits. Jeremy, thanks for the note. Yeah, trying to be fast here and get as much information out as we can, and I got a lot more to keep learning here as well. So, stated manure does not provide value in the updated GREET for CI. So, does that mean it doesn't lower CI score at all? There's a huge CI reducer before, and the idea was that was taken down. You're exactly right. CI manure was a amazing one historically. Now it's not included at all. There's no way to get credit for your manure, even in lowering your fertilizer usage and stuff. Even that way, you can't get a credit from your manure. Not in anything that I've seen anyway. I believe the issue is, the government, they're hearing from all sides, right? Especially a lot of environmental groups who don't like animal agriculture at all. This would have incentivized animal agriculture, and it gave great credit to the manure because it was a byproduct of animal agriculture. The emissions associated with the animal, the farts and the burps and that kind of thing, right? That stays with the animal, and therefore the animal and that supply chain would have the carbon footprint associated to it. The manure was a byproduct and therefore gave tremendous CI reduction for the farmer. And some of these groups didn't like how that was being accounted for, and I think again, they kind of ran out of time in figuring out how should they account for it, so they just said we're just not going to do it for right now. But we definitely got to fight for that one. It's a big deal. Andy, did any of the CI value of the recognized ag practice change, or do they fall in line with previous estimates? Hopefully I got to that one before. It looks pretty close. Strip till appear to be considered no till. I got to dig into the stir number, whatever I think they call it, to determine if strip till keeps your stir number below 20, then it would be no till. But I don't yet know. It might be in the reduced till, and I have not played around with the model enough to see what is the CI difference between reduced till and no till. So I got to spend some more time to figure out how big of a deal is it between those two practices. When you say manure has no credit, does that mean you need to report manure N value as purchased synthetic and applied? No. So you have to report all of your fertilizer applications, which would include manure. You have to report the dates, the application methods. You have to show, how you applied it, when you put it on, all that kind of stuff. But it just doesn't move the needle from a CI perspective. So you have to note all of your fertilizer that you're utilizing. It doesn't specify synthetic versus organic fertilizers. It just says you got to document all of your applications and a bunch of specifics about it, but it just doesn't give you a nitrogen credit to utilize manure rather than utilize synthetic. Mike, good to have you on, man. It feels like 40B guidance was check all the boxes to qualify. Does new CF model have some flexibility to reduce CI score and still qualify, or does it feel like another check all boxes? No, this is check one box or multiple. That was the key thing. This is not bundles. They got rid of the bundles, which is huge win. Before it was all or nothing. You had to check all the boxes. Now you can do just one of the practices and you can qualify. You won't get a lot of benefit. The more practices you do, the more benefit, but no more bundles. Did ILUC, which is indirect land use change, did that change with corn and soybeans? There was some, I'm definitely not an expert on ILUC, but it's my understanding that in the 45Z CF model, there was a change in ILUC, and I know they updated the R&D GREET model, which is the overall GREET model. They updated that here recently, and my understanding is that they also gave a lower indirect land use change number for corn. I'm not an expert on it, but it looks like they have fixed that. But yeah, I'm not an expert there, but it looks better. RNG under 45Z, renewable natural gas. A footnote says that they will not allow book and claim, but another note says the rules will be consistent with 45Z, which does allow for book and claim. Any guidance on this? Why should they not allow book and claim for 45Z, given this is the ultimate end goal? This is that's a great point. You're anonymous on here, but would love to talk about that more. That's going to be a really important piece in the public comment period. So again, keep in mind, IRS has the authority here. IRS is asking for feedback. IRS has not ruled on mass balance or book and claim. They did say, I think they said a little bit about mass balance now that I think about it and say that out loud, but they have not made a definitive, final rule. USDA recommends that it's mass balance, but it's a great point to align with some of these other 45 tax credits. We'll have to say, hey, why would you do it for one and not the other? Let's do it here for 45Z. But would ATS qualify as a nitrogen inhibitor? No. Ammonium thiosol, it's nitrification inhibitor. I don't believe anyway. Unless it's on that approved list, which I've not been able to look at yet, I don't believe ATS would qualify as a nitrification inhibitor. But we'll have to look. Ashley, make sure you encourage folks to submit feedback to USDA. Yes, submit your feedback. Do you know if the farm level weighted average will be based on the field size or acreage or on yield? Yep. So it's a weighted average, which counts in. It doesn't ask, I don't believe the initial thing asks for your field acres. No, I don't see that ask for field acres, but it does ask for your total production from that field. So again, that's where it doesn't factor in yield per acre. It just factors in total number of bushels. So it'll be total number of bushels with that field's CI score. Then you do that for each field, and it calculates in a weighted average of all of those individual fields based on the overall production. So not necessarily on field size, just on the production and the CI score, weighted average all those together. We can workshop that some more as we're running your CI scores for free. When it comes to nitrogen applied with manure, we'll have to use total nitrogen, or can we use some sort of available nitrogen? Those numbers will be very different. Not clear. That's going to be part of the specifics that we're going to have to figure out in this nutrient management plan concept. But yeah, not clear on how you have to account for it. What's the timeline for those rules to be confirmed so we know when it's finalized? Do not know yet, Jim. No indication about how soon we're going to get some finalized rules. Hopefully sooner rather than later, but it's going to take all of us communicating with the Trump administration to make sure they get this done. Judy, I see your hand up. I can let you in if you'd like. Oh, now you're gone. Jason, what was the listed N inhibitors? Did ATS or humic? What's the average reduction in CI score listed? I have not been able to read through to see what is the reduction from the nitrification inhibitor. And again, the list of them that they say would, it just says nitrification inhibitors. And it was nitrification inhibitors basically for ammonia only, and the ammonia to nitrate process. So again, that's kind of limiting on nitrification inhibitors applied to ammonia. They say that it would apply for all nitrogen, but it's a nitrification inhibitor, which is specific for ammonia. But the products are defined by AAPFCO. We will figure out that list and try to get it out there for everybody, but don't know right now. Does the new model clarify how to account for additional fertilizers, example, anhydrous ammonia, manure? No. So it does not account for how much fertilizer you use. You have to report it. You have to prove that you did the fertilizer, but it does not, in the score, it does not account for the pounds per acre. What if you're already involved in Ohio's H2 Ohio program payments doing the practices? Dean, good question. I believe that the H2 Ohio program is practice-based and is not a carbon outcome-based program. I'm not from Ohio. I am not an expert in the H2 Ohio program, but as long as the H2 Ohio program is not taking a greenhouse gas outcome claim and you're not getting paid for the carbon credit or for the outcome, you should be fine. Pay for practice and pay for the carbon impact are two different things. You just can't be in two different, you can't be in two carbon programs. Whereas it indicated the dollar bushel is for grabs in the total supply chain, are the chances greater? The number goes up or down. So the financial math and stuff has been laid out by the IRS, and that's still in all the old rules and stuff that a biofuel producer who meets the prevailing wage and registered apprenticeship program will earn 2 cents per point per gallon for every point below 50. And so that translates to you take 2 cents per gallon multiplied by your conversion ratio of bushels in to gallons out. National average is 2.9 gallons per bushel. Therefore, national average would be 5.8 cents per point per bushel to be shared. Again, the IRS did not necessarily give the biofuel producers the exact details to enable them to really start sharing anything right now. But we do know on the farm side and as an industry how we can get our data organized. So uh, the further you move the needle on the practices adds up to ability to get in that dollar a bushel kind of range. Secretary Vilsack was reporting on that yesterday in the meeting I was in with him about the good impact that you can have there. All right, I'm going to keep answering a couple more. I do have a hard stop at the top of the hour, but might as well keep going. What's worth more to the ethanol producers, 45Q or 45Z, because of anti-stacking? If ethanol plants go with Q, then the CSA practices won't even pay. That's correct. So it's Q or Z. It's my understanding and talking with biofuel producers that 45Z does pay more and they would elect for 45Z, even if they only had a pipeline. I don't know if any of that has changed here recently. I've not heard, but it's my understanding that Z is better, even if you're only using a pipeline. But of course, then when you stack the climate smart practices with a pipeline, then you get even better benefit from Z. But I believe Z should end up being still a better option. Given what you know today, what do you anticipate additional regulatory administrative cost will be to meet those reporting standards, percentage cost increase? They laid out the government actually laid out what they think the cost is going to be. And for farmers, they were saying this is going to be like, figure 7 hours of work annually to do all the data management and all that kind of thing. I think we can help you to cut down on that. If you've got your ducks in a row and utilizing our TopSoil software, I think we can do this in less than 7 hours. But you know, even if a program, if it's 3, 5, 7 hours and you're making decent return on it, I think that's going to be time well spent. But they say that they anticipate the farmer piece to be probably 7 hours. They anticipate an elevator, an aggregator, to be anywhere up to 286 hours, what they have in here. So you're not talking a full-time person to do all this. They say 286 hours. I think at the elevator side, um, if you don't have a software system here, if you're not already collecting some data from farmers or you don't work with somebody that's got software like ours, I think it's going to be a heck of a lot more than 286 hours to do this as an elevator. Maybe once you got things humming and you've got a software built out like ours, you got somebody contracted, sure, then it would be maybe just a couple hundred hours, to administer the program. But they give some information about the time that they think. I think we can get through the audits and like for what we are going to be charging the farmers to assist them through this. I think we can still continue to do it cost effective. We're currently at $7 an acre. I don't know what we are going to do going forward here. We've got a lot of calculations and work to be done on that. But I think the upside still looks like it's more than going to be there. That yeah, it's probably going to cost us on the farm a little bit of money to go through audits and do all this data stuff, but the upside's going to be there to get ROI and make it worth it. John, how much time should we invest in a biofuel report until we know how our ethanol producer is going to participate? Great question, John. My answer is not that much time. And again, that's where I think Continuum can fill that gap for you. What I recommend you do today is go to topsoil.ag, start a account and do the farm profile, which is just what your typical corn practices, what your typical soybean practices. And today we've automated, and it's already in there for free, your current CI score using the old model. Very soon we will get the new model brought in there, and we will send you what your new CI score is under the USDA model. That way, you know if it goes that route, you know where you're at. What I would recommend doing if you are in a biofuel supply chain, I think it's going to be the right thing to move forward and produce your biofuel feedstock report, which includes attestation, it includes all the field level practices. It's very similar to our CI certification program that we do today. We do it today for $7 an acre, and that includes the third party audit and verification. I think that we might be able to adjust some of the timing of that and adjust the business model a little bit, but I do not know yet. But for right now, at least spend the time to know what your score is and be working towards developing your biofuel feedstock report. That's gonna be required if you're in a biofuel supply chain. What's the best way to find out if local ethanol plants participate in 45Z program? Nathan, what I'm working on developing a marketplace and the ability to connect biofuel producers and farmers, but it's going to kind of have to be a collaborative effort here. So biofuel folks, or if folks are on here that are tied in with their biofuel producer or on the board or whatever, we need to be figuring out some strategy at the biofuel producer side. They did not get enough clarity from the IRS to start a program right now, anything more than a pilot phase, but they should be figuring out communicating with their farmers, getting the preliminary CI scores put together, and being ready here. As a farmer, you should be communicating with your ethanol plant to understand what is their take on this. Are they ready for it? I would love to communicate with them. Folks from my team, we can help them out and run some numbers for them, run some scenarios for them, and help them to prepare for this. But on the farm, it's not just going to be your grain. Like if you sell to a biofuel producer, they're going to need more than just you participating in this. We need other farmers in the area to be getting these baseline CI scores. We've got to have volume of us to be able to rise to the occasion and help our biofuel friends to capitalize on this program and be ready. And I think it can be done for relatively inexpensive for the tremendous still potential upside opportunity. But we'll follow up with some more info. Matt, AAPFCO is the American Association of Plant Food Control Officials. Fertilizers are regulated state by state. This is association, all those state regulators that regulate and define fertilizers. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, you are in that space. Appreciate the clarity there. Jeff, so if you need to be in it for 4 out of 5 years, how does that affect new land being brought into the operation? What if they have been no-till for more than 5 years? No, so this is all look forward. So it's not talking about no-till for 4 out of 5 years historically. It's saying in your 2025 crop, say for example, if you are going to claim your 2025 crop was no-till, that means for the next 5 years, you're saying that you're going to keep to a no-till system going forward. This has nothing to do with historical. Therefore, if you're picking up new ground, or if it was tilled in the past, that doesn't matter. This is about looking forward. Review, and there was no indication of any additionality or any of that stuff in there right now. It's just what did you do on that year? Tim, review the bushel and how they must be delivered. Actual CI bushel production must be delivered to the processor. Yep. So the actual CI bushel has either got to go from your farm directly to the processor or mass balanced through an aggregator. So your CI bushel can go to an elevator. They blend all those bushels together. It's not going to be your actual bushel that then gets delivered to the biofuel producer, but your data, your certificates, your bushels can be sold to an elevator. They have to do a mass balance to document how many of the low carbon bushels they bought and how many they sold. They have to keep track of it. But there does have to be this supply chain traceability and mass balancing, which is going to be expensive. Does fall applied fertilizer and anhydrous in the fall of 2024 eliminate participation in the 2025 crop year? No. Does this create a big headache for the fertilizer industry? Yes. So it's not an all or nothing. So there's a checkbox that says no fall fertilizer. If you check that box, you get a CI benefit, but it's not a all or nothing. Um, Obviously, doing all of our fertilizer in the spring is going to be very tough on the fertilizer industry. It's going to be more expensive for all of us on the farm. And I don't yet know if the juice is going to be worth the squeeze at scale. I don't know what the CI impact of that is. But for your 2025 crop, if you already put on fall fertilizer, like we did on our farm, we just will not be able to check that box on our 2025 crop. We can evaluate it as an option for our 2026 crop, but in our 2025 crop, that ship would have already sailed. And now we would be looking at what was the tillage? Did you plant a cover crop? And maybe some of the other checkbox items. But um, yeah, there's no indication of anything being grandfathered in or anything like that. Susan, how do CCS points and CSA points compare? So CCS, carbon capture and storage, my understanding was that that would get you about 30 points of reduction. I do not have 100% confirmation right now on the 45ZCF-GREET model if it's still 30 points, but before yesterday, it was my understanding that carbon capture would be approximately 30 points. The CSA, the Climate Smart Ag Practices, with the old model, you could get more than 30 points of reduction on our farm. Here last year we were 27 points of reduction. Last year we were 33 points of reduction. It's of course dependent on yield in those. But in the new USDA feedstock calculator, looks like you can get close to 30 points, but probably not beyond it. I think more so it's going to be in that 10, 15, 20, 25 points for the farm practices. So not quite as big of an upside potential, but it's still pretty good. And of course, stacking both is how you can get your ethanol close to zero. All right. Oh man, we got Jaden and Mr. Cluster Cluck. We might have to get both of these, and there's a whole bunch of questions. I wish I could get to all of them. Jaden, you mentioned there will need to be a photo proof of cover crop. Uh, Not necessarily cover crop germination. Is there a germination issue? Can you apply cover crop but not get the credit? Yeah, so the way that I read it is you have to prove that the cover crop you applied got some type of greenhouse gas benefit. So you're going to need to take a photo, whether it be at germination and showing that you got some decent coverage, or maybe before termination or at planting, just some way to be able to prove that you got some decent growth. Now, they reference remote sensing. I don't know if that's going to be an option, that maybe we can utilize that, or this is a piece that, like, I don't know how this is going to work in principle and in reality. Um, and we're going to need to tie it in on the public comment. Okay, Zach, be a good lad and do all three suggested practices. Farmer share estimated of about 40 cents per bushel and 220 bushel corn equals 88 bucks an acre. Is the math approximately correct? The potential ballpark with the news. Yeah, so Zach, what some of the examples I've been seeing, so say you can get $1 a bushel or maybe up to $1.50 a bushel. I think I was running one of the scenarios of. So say the max that the farmer could contribute is $1.50 a bushel. The farmer is going to get a percentage of that. Say, I don't know, at the beginning here, it might be fairly low, 10%, 20%, 25% of the value. Maybe they'll be split payments. We don't know yet. Hopefully there'll be some programs get rolled out. But yeah, so say the farmer can get, yeah, 40 cents a bushel. I don't think is out of the question. If you're doing, you got to do a couple of the practices. It won't be able to just be just one of them. But I think there's still decent financial opportunity here for the biofuel producer and for the farmer, and we need each other to go after this together. So, okay, I think I got to stop. I gotta go get on another meeting here, but I think we have all of these questions. Let me take a couple screenshots here and make sure. I'm pretty sure they're all documented. I will get to the rest of your questions upcoming chit chats. Really appreciate everyone that's been on here. We will get this on YouTube as soon as possible and get that shared with you, and you can share it with your networks. So appreciate everyone being on. We got some good stuff here. Get your CI score put together and stay tuned. We will get you some more info as fast as we can. Thanks, everyone. Bye.